Good morning and Happy New Year. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Princeton, where in our open and welcoming community, we live our message of hope, love, justice, and joy. We welcome those of you live here in Channing Hall and those joining on Zoom for our continuing experiment in live streaming one service instead of holding a separate Zoom and in-person service. Keep an eye on your email for future experiments. We'll be in touch about what we're planning in the future as those plans come together. And we extend a special welcome to our visitors this morning. We invite you to stop by our newcomer table in Robinson Lounge after the service if you haven't already, so that we can get you any information that you're looking for about our congregation and the many things that we do here. Again, welcome everyone. It's a blessing to be together on this first day of the new year. We have one quick reminder that we are collecting magazines in good condition and 2023 calendars for clients of the Trenton Area Soup Kitchen or TASK. Sometimes magazines kind of pile up in our homes, or maybe we get some extra calendars in the mail. TASK is very happy to pass those along to people who'd enjoy them. So just bring them to church and put them in the boxes underneath the coat rack in Robinson Lounge, and we'll be collecting those through January 15th, which is Martin Luther King Jr. Sunday. And now, friends, on this holy day, let us gather in peace and unity, as one before the grace and grandeur of life, as children before its great and loving mystery. In this hour, may we know anew the holy joy of human lives growing together, so that this hour may imbue all those to come with that same sacred awareness. Come, let us worship together.
Today's chalice lighting comes from Maya Angelou. I did then what I knew how to do. Now that I know better, I do better. This past week, my husband Danica and I took a trip to Washington, D.C. to celebrate our 7th wedding anniversary. We're very lucky in that we get to travel together quite frequently. This past summer, we visited his native Ireland for the first time since March 2020, and were in Germany in late September. However, the trip to Ireland was with our 3 kids, and the trip to Germany was for work. He's a composer, and the group I play with was premiering a new work of his at a festival in Bonn. We hadn't been away alone for fun for close to 3 years. So needless to say, we were absolutely delighted when my mom agreed to mind our 5-year-old for a few days so we could get out of town for a second before everything starts up again this Tuesday. So the morning of the 27th, we leisurely packed a suitcase and left the house around noon, figuring we'd arrive in DC around 4 o'clock at the latest. What we hadn't considered was the fact that a lot of other people would be traveling that day as well, which in retrospect was really silly of us. So there we were at the Joseph R. Biden rest stop in Delaware, lined up for gas for a good half an hour. Once inside the rest stop, we took one glance at the empty coolers at Pret a Manger and another glance at the seemingly endless queue at Starbucks, and decided lunch and/or coffee would have to wait. Finally, 6.5 hours later, our harrowing journey came to an end and we pulled into the parking garage of our hotel. Thankfully, we did manage to get in a moonlight visit to the Lincoln Memorial, which was quite lovely. Fast forward 16 hours, and we're waiting in line to visit the history galleries at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. We had seen the stunning exterior of the building the night before and wanted to be sure to visit in the morning. Neither of us knew what to expect. We hadn't read about the museum ahead of time and had never talked to someone who had been there. To say we were absolutely floored would be an understatement. The galleries begin 3 floors underground in dark and narrow rooms. The first gallery, called Slavery and Freedom, details the time period between 1400 and 1877, what was in essence the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade through the end of post-war Reconstruction. I was shocked, absolutely stunned, to read about the atrocities that Europeans meted out to Native Africans. Individuals were captured from their homes, literally stacked into ships, and sent via what is known as the Middle Passage to lands far away from their loved ones to endure lives of servitude and, more often than not, torture. Many didn't survive the journey across the Atlantic. This went on for centuries before the international slave trade was banned in America in 1808. That the domestic slave trade continued well into the 19th century is absolutely shameful, not to mention the atrocious treatment of African Americans in the first 2/3 of the 20th century and even now. On an intellectual level, I knew bits and pieces about the slave trade, what I had learned in school, but I had never been immersed in the topic in such a detailed and emotional way. I found it shocking and again, shameful. Shameful is the word that comes to mind for me when I think about the way I dared to feel put out during my slightly longer than usual journey from my comfortable home in Princeton to Washington, D.C. How, during those few measly hours of my harrowing journey in the car, I lacked gratitude for what's been afforded me and for my ability to choose freely to do what I want with my time and my life. I am and forever will be grateful for the life-altering experience I had at the African American History Museum this past week. It has shed an immense amount of light on my own privilege and has served as a stark reminder that I must treat every single person with equal respect and dignity and kindness. This is what I'm taking into the new year, and I am so glad.
Once upon a time, the leader of a village was nearing the end of his life, and the people knew that they would soon need a new leader. So they gathered a council of elders who decided to come up with a test to see who their new leader would be. And the test was this: anyone who wanted to be the leader was instructed to fill the great hall in town, the room where they had their largest meetings and parties and dances and all that, with something, anything. They had to fill that space with what? That was up to them. And whoever was best at this would be the new leader. The catch was that they could spend no more than $20. That was the test. They had to fill the great hall with as much stuff as they could while spending only $20 or less. One person took the $20 to the harvesters and farmers and bought all of their leftover stalks and leaves. They spread that out all over the floor to fill up as much of the space as they could. Another person went to the weavers and the sewers and the quilters and bought the leftover fabric and spread that out all over the floor as well. Another person gathered the scrap paper from the school that would have been recycled and used it to cover not only the floor, but part of the walls and the ceiling too. They seemed to be in the lead until one person realized that $20 could buy a lot of balloons. And if they were inflated, they would take up a lot of space. And so they spent their $20 that way. But in the end, the contest came down to two people. One of them brought the council of elders into the great hall, turned out the lights so that it was completely dark, and lit a candle in the middle of the room. Light flowed forth from the small candle and reached every corner, filling the space as nothing else did. It was dim, but peaceful and lovely, and met the challenge very well. And then the other finalist stepped forward, smiling at the light bearer, and sat in a chair in the middle of the room and pulled out their violin and filled that space with beautiful sounds. Again, the hall was full of beauty, and held by the warm candlelight and soft music, the elders made their choice. So you are the elders. Who would choose the candle bearer? Who would choose the violinist? Who would choose both? Both, choose both. Who would choose someone else? Maybe I don't know. That's my version of the story. The story, as I've come across it here and there, is usually about a father choosing which child gets the bulk of the inheritance and comes up with a similar test to see who is the wisest. Two fill the space, one with rubbish, and then two fill the space with rubbish, one with light, and the one who fills it with light wins out. There's no violin player, and for that matter, no balloons or scrap paper either. And there's a clear outcome. The light bearer fills the space with warmth and beauty, not trash and waste, and thus gets the prize. But as we head into 2023, I'm aware of how often life's choices can be much less clear, can be muddy and cloudy. Sometimes we can choose the better of two great options, an artist or a light bearer, and sometimes we have to choose the less bad of two awful ones. Sometimes there is no truly good choice to make, and yet one must be made, and so we make it. It's good to have friends in these circumstances, friends to talk with about choices and important things. and people with whom to celebrate and laugh and relax with as well. They can offer company and perspective and the gift of listening that in itself opens up new ideas and possibilities. Sometimes saying things out loud to trusted friends opens doors in our minds and hearts that we didn't even know were there. Maybe there's another option that will only become clear when we voice the dilemma with someone we trust. That is really easy for some of us and very difficult for others. And if it's difficult for you, maybe start very small with just one thing and one friend and see what happens. You don't have to open all the way up, just a little bit. And it's good to have prayer or meditation or some spiritual practice that can ground and guide us when 2023 becomes a bit too much, as it will for all of us at some point this year. It'll be a bit too much sooner or later. And if we've built prayer or meditation or some spiritual discipline into our lives when it wasn't too much, we'll be able to lean on the strength and power of that practice when things are turbulent. That's the thing about spiritual disciplines. You practice them when you don't need them so that they'll be there when you do. And it's good to have a sense of Sabbath too, to rest, to take a break, to turn off the news and screens and all media, and be with family and friends and loved ones. Maybe eat something special, maybe watch an old movie that you love, maybe go for a drive and turn on the music very loudly and sing like you're on stage at a concert. Those are what I want to guide me in 2023, good friends, regular prayer, and remembering to rest. But mostly I want to remember that story and the light bearer and the musician, and know that each of us has those gifts in essence to offer the world this year. We can all be of light and of beauty. We can all be of peace and wisdom. We can fill the spaces around us with rubbish and waste, or we can fill them with what will bless everyone. We can all enter this year as light bearers and artists and fill our shared lives with wonder and new possibilities, with light, with art, and with one another. We can bless more broadly than ever before and know anew our faith as prophetic and loving. Every day we can light a candle, and every day we can make beautiful noise. Every day for stranger and friend, we can bear blessings of kindness and peace and thoughtfulness. We can forgive and practice grace and praise the presence of those two gifts in our lives. We can be humble and just and merciful in thought and word and deed. And in this spirit, we will find 2023 to be a year of great hope, love, justice, and joy. We'll meet the difficulties of these days, those known and unknown, together. We'll lift one another up, and we'll embrace the stranger, and we'll celebrate our shared lives, our shared future, and our shared faith, in which all are loved, all are needed, and all is sacred. May it be so, and amen. Go forth grateful for the moments before you, the breath within you, the people among you, and the Spirit guiding you toward lives of greater love and kindness. And go forth knowing that you are held always with neighbor and stranger by that great love of no beginning and never ending. Go in peace, and amen.